Hi folks, this is Vicki from patternprincess.com. I want to show you today how to work the stitches for this Summer Breeze shawl. It's just a pretty triangular shawl that is worked from the top coming down. This is where it starts, and you can see we have rows of double crochet, and then we have rows of double crochet with spaces in between. And of course I let the yarn do all of the color changing for me. This is a beautiful yarn. It's a fingering yarn. The one I happened to use today was the Cotton Kings Twirls, and this one here does have 874 yards, and let me see, the color is number 10. It just comes in a color number 10. I did use an size H crochet hook, so I did use that for this project. It's just lovely. What I'm going to do first, I'm going to show you how to crochet this with a little bit bigger yarn, because I think sometimes this yarn can be very hard to see the stitches in. And this, once you get past row 7 on this this crochet shawl, then it's a repeat, sometimes of row 3, sometimes 7, and sometimes 6. So I'll have the directions for each row and repeating row in the free pattern on the website. So make sure that you check out the website. I'm looking at my notebook here. Here's all my notebook with my notes, so I keep track of it. There are 55 rows in here, and of course the last 5 rows are repeat of row 3. And so I'll make sure I have all of this information in our pattern for you. So I'm going to get going here. I'm going to show you on this Caron Simply Soft first how to do this. I will, after I show you how to do the first few rows here, I will also work it in the skinnier yarn, just so you can see what it looks like. In case you've never tried a fingering yarn, you can kind of see how it is to crochet with it. But I absolutely love, love, love the results. So light, so airy, just beautiful. And the flow is wonderful. Oh, and there was one more thing I want to tell you now that I see it. So when you lay the shawl flat, I don't know if you can see this here, it bunches up just a little bit, like it's because you have the some rows here where it's a little bit, what would you call it, sturdier, and then here it's a little bit more open stitching. Well, then that means that this here might be pulled a little bit. So if you're trying to make sure, if you see this happening as you're going, it's okay, mine did too. And the further you get out, the more noticeable it is. I don't know if you can see right here. You see it kind of like rolls a little bit. I'm going to pull that out, but that's okay. This one here kind of bubbles a little bit. But as you can see, if you take a look at the styling photos I did on the website, so you can see it there, you can see the bubble a little pretty good. If you look at those, it's hardly noticeable. And because it's just such a beautiful flow to it, and that part's wrapped around in every which way anyway. So I just kept going when I noticed it happening. So it didn't bother me at all. So if that bothers you, you may have a better solution for it than I did. So I'll be back with the pattern here. Okay, we're going to get started here. Got to get my slip stitch on here. And of course, put your slip stitch on any way that you know how. This is the way that my grandma taught me. I just wrap it around my fingers, and then I pull one loop through, and there's my slip stitch. And the reason we want that, of course, is to be able to tighten it up on the shank of the hook here as we need to. So you could start this with a magic circle, but because there's going to be a lot of wear and tear in this area, I made sure I started this with a chain 4, and then I slip stitch into the first chain to make a circle. So we're going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're going to slip stitch right back into that first circle, that first chain, and we're going to create our circle. And I'm going to move this out of the way. And now we're going to, our next stitches, it's hard to show you here, we are going to work right here inside of this circle, right here. See that? We're going to work inside of there. So the first one we're going to do is chain 3, which counts as a double crochet. 1, 2, 3. Yarn over, and then we're going to do 3 more double crochet in this circle. So we're going to put our hook in the circle, bring it through, yarn over, come through 2 loops, yarn over through 2 loops, and that makes a double crochet. We're going to do that 2 more times. Put it in the circle, yarn over, come through 2 loops, through 2 loops, and 1 more. Okay, so now what we really essentially had, even though this was a chain 3, remember that counted as a double crochet. So now it's 1, 2, 3, 4 double crochets. Now we're going to chain 2, 1, 2. Then we're going to yarn over, and right back in that same circle we're going to work 4 double crochets. We have 4 double crochets here. We've chained 2, which is going to be the middle of the shawl. So we need 4 double crochets on the other side to be symmetrical. Does that make sense? Here's 1. 2, and actually I'm going to crochet over that tail a little bit. 3. And this tail, eventually you would weave in and then trim. Okay, so here is the first start of your shawl. There is row 1. We have what essentially is 4 double crochet on each side and 2 chain spaces in the middle. Okay, so now we're going to turn it. Now we're going to do a chain 3. Get my yarn out of here. 1, 2, 3, and this is always going to count as a double crochet. All right, and then we're going to yarn over, and in that same stitch we're going to do 2 double crochets because we're going to make this bigger in each row. 1, 2. Then we're going to double crochet in the next 3 double crochets. So yarn over, and here's 1, 2, 3. There's your 3 double crochets. Okay, and then in this chain 2 space from the previous row, we're going to work a double crochet, a chain 1, and a double crochet. So we're going to yarn over and do a double crochet, chain 1, and a double crochet. And then we're going to work the next 3 double crochets. So here's 1. I should say a double crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. That would be better. And then here is 3. And then in the very last stitch right here, remember this was our first chain 3 over here, we're going to do 3 double crochet, and then that'll match the other side. You always got to think about whatever you're doing on one side of those middle chains, you're going to do on the other side. So they will match on both sides. 2. So if it's off in count on one side, double check the other side. Okay? And here we go. So now we should have a total of 14 double crochet and 1 chain space. So let's count. We have 1, 2, 3, there's our first 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now on the other side we should have 7, right? Because here's our chain space. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, we are now done with row, let me see, that's going to be row 3. No, row 2, pardon me, row 2. This is row 2. And then we're going to move on to row 3. Okay, row 3 is going to be a repeat of row 2. So again, we do our chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then 2 double crochets in that same stitch. And then a double crochet in each stitch, all the way to the middle. Whoops, I didn't catch all the yarn. I do love the Caron Simply Soft, but sometimes you really have to be careful and make sure you get all of the yarn strands because it has a tendency to separate, but it is lovely and soft. Okay, and then 1 more, and then in the middle we work our double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, and then a double crochet in every single one after. Oops, my yarn tangled. I should have some music playing for you or something. Okay, now we're down to our last 3 double crochet, and sometimes on that top chain stitch it kind of gets tight on me and I have to really poke my hook through there. All right, 3 is done. And I'm going to continue on with rows 4 and 5 because it's just a repeat of row 3. And then in rows 6 and 7 is where it gets a little bit different. And then I'll have shown you all of the rows that are used to make this lovely shawl, okay? Okay, I have just completed row 5 and we have 32 double crochets and 1 chain space in the middle right here. Okay, do you see the row of chain spaces right here? Right there down the middle, okay? So this is row 5 done. Now we're going to move on to row 6. And row 6 and 7 are different because of what well, on one side we're going to crochet right up to that middle space, and the other one we're going to like do a chain 1 and get to the middle space. So it works either way. And I think that it's easier to do it, just have a little bit different, do it this way, and know it's okay to have it different, okay? So what I did is a chain 4, which is a double crochet and a chain 1. So chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I'm going to yarn over, and right in the same space, I'm going to do a double crochet. Okay, then I'm going to chain 1 and untangle my yarn. Well, I don't know why I always get a tangle when I'm on camera. Yarn over. We're going to skip this next stitch right here. We're going to skip that stitch. See this? Skipping that stitch, we're going to this stitch. The next stitch, we're going to double crochet. Chain 1. We're going to skip that stitch. We're going to the next stitch. Okay, we're going to yarn over. Chain 1. Skip this stitch. Go to this stitch. Chain 1, skip, go to the next. Chain, skip, go to the next. I'm going to do that all the way to the center. Chain 1, skip, go to the next. Chain 1, skip, go to the next. So here was my dilemma. I couldn't do a chain 1 and skip 1 and then, well gosh, there's no other double crochet to go to. So what I ended up doing is there's 1 stitch that remains before the previous row. So I didn't worry about that stitch. I just kind of like skipped over it for now, okay? So what I did is I did a chain 1, and then I skip this stitch here, right? This double crochet. And then I'm going to go right into that previous row chain 1 space and work 2, work a double crochet and a chain 2. So I had to make sure I was saying this right. Double crochet, chain 2, and then we're going to go right back into here and work a double crochet. Okay. And so then this side is done. Now we're going to repeat on the other side. So remember, whatever we do on one side, we do on the other. So now we do a chain. We're going to skip that first stitch. So we're going to the next stitch, and we're going to do a double crochet. And a chain 1, skip this, double crochet. Chain 1, skip the stitch, go to the next. And I'm going to work all the way to the end. Chain 1, skip 1, double crochet, chain 1, skip 1, double crochet. As you can see, this you can really clip along nicely once you get going on this pattern. 1, 2, here we go. And then chain 1, skip this 1, and then we're going to work in this top chain stitch of that first chain 3. We're going to work a double crochet, a chain 1, and a double crochet. And so now I'm going to lay this flat and have you look. So check this out. It works on both sides, okay? So this was row 6. So when I say to repeat row 6, the only difference between like 6 and 7 is going to be whether you skip this stitch right here or not, okay? But it all works. It all works. Okay, we are now moving on to row 7. So row 7 is going to be a chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, yarn over, and then in this first gap that you see, the first chain 4, I should explain, counts as a double crochet and a chain 1, okay? Then we move to the gap, and we're going to do a double crochet, chain 1, and right in that same gap, double crochet. Then we're going to do a chain 1, and then we're going to skip to the next gap and do a double crochet. Chain 1, skip to the next gap, double crochet. Chain 1, skip, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1, and another double crochet, chain 1, we go to the next gap, oops, and then the next gap, and I forget if I did chain 1. Okay, we're almost to the middle now, chain 1, and then we're going to crochet in the gap. Okay, so crochet in the gap, okay, or I should say in this, well, the gap right here before the middle, okay. So when you in the chain 2 space right here, we're gonna end up skipping this part right here. We're gonna work a chain 1, and we're gonna skip this one here, and we're gonna do a double crochet, chain 2, and a double crochet, and a chain. We're skipping that, and we're going to go to the gap, chain 1, work in the gap, chain 1, work in the gap, and we're almost to the end. And we'll have row 7 done. Okay, so then remember in this gap, oops, and I gotta get just a smidge bit more yarn to show you this. So in this last gap here, we're going to do a double crochet, because whatever you did on one side, you do on the other. Double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1, and then actually to keep it a little bit the same looking, let's put it this way, I went right in the stitch, the last, and I put the last double crochet right in the stitch, just like I would have started the other one. I'll pull this loop bigger, and here we go. And you can kind of see how this kind of bubbles up just a smidge, even just this, because this is you're making this a little bit wider than this, but it, like I said, it still has a beautiful flow to it. And here's our middle stitches all lining up, and you can see the edges. And I'm going to again show you this here, and then if you'd like, I'm going to work this pattern using a different color yarn, but I'm going to work the same pattern here. And see, here this is. See how this lines up? I'm going to turn this upside down for you so that you can see this all lined up. And that's where you would be on this shawl. Isn't that pretty? And I'm going to show you using this thin yarn. This is what this is made from. 4 strands of like thread-like yarn. I'm going to show you how to work this. Okay, I have done up to row 5, and this is using that really thread-like fingering yarn. I'm going to try and show this really close. You can see that there's 4 little strands. 4 little strands of yarn. See that? But it makes the most gorgeous shawls. And actually, this yarn that I have left over here, well, actually, I'm not sure if it's left over yet. I'm using this particular skein to make a market bag. And oh my goodness, is that coming out gorgeous. So I'll end up sharing that eventually here too. So anyways, I had this yarn to be able to show you, but it's just beautiful. So I'm up to row 5. So you can see how it is to work with this fingering yarn. It's not as bad as what you think, because I think I'm using the H size hook and not a smaller hook, I'm able to see my stitches a little bit better. So we're going to do our chain 3, and then see, you can see that stitch. There's your first stitch, and you put your 2 double crochet right there. There we go, and it's the same. The only thing I'd say is when you find your next stitch, so here's the next stitch. instead of putting your hook closer to this side, I put my hook closer to that side of the stitch because there's a little bit more of a hole right here, and it's easier to get your hook through. So, and of course, as I'm working along, I move my fingers to help hold the yarn as we, you know, my left hand's helping with the whole process too. Whoop, and there's one little thread. Make sure you get all the little threads each time. And there's another one. Okay. And then we'll just continue to go, and you can see how this is to work with this fingering yarn. But it's not as bad and not as scary as what I had thought. I mean, I really thought, oh gosh, how am I ever going to make anything out of this? But those yarn skeins, those yarn cakes are so pretty, and they have such beautiful colors that, gosh, I needed to figure out, oh, okay, I got to take the plunge, I've got to make this, I've got to try this, and I am so happy that I did. I've actually made, gosh, I'm going to say 4 or 5 shawls maybe already. And each one of them, I get them done, and it's just like hotcakes. I mean, well, actually one I gave to a gal, she was just diagnosed with cancer. And the Feeling Flirty pink shawl, there's a little bit of white and off-white and pink shades. I gave in a gray on the end. I gave that to her as she's fighting breast cancer. But a lot of the other ones, it's like somebody at work, I brought one into work, and then I couldn't bring it home, and I don't have one myself yet. I guess I'll have to just keep making them. And I try to do a little bit different pattern each time. And there were 2 I did of the Heartland shawl that has this type of yarn, and one was in blue and one was in lavender. And well, that I gave to some friends. I was actually making them on purpose for 2 gals, herself and her mom. Her mom had gone, and dad both had COVID. They had gone through a really tough time. But everybody lived through it. But it's hard when your parents are elderly, and everybody's trying to survive this difficult time right now. And so sometimes getting a handmade thing is just the right thing, to know that somebody's caring about you, somebody's thinking about you, and it's the best thing as a crafter and somebody that makes things by hand. It is the best thing in the world when somebody appreciates your work, and you just see them light up. It warms my heart. And so we're coming to the end here. So I have these 2 stitches left. Okay, I have where we did those original double crochets, those 3. I have this one left and this one. So I'm going to do my double crochet here, and I'll do 3 double crochets in the end. And just like the other yarn, yep, it's hard to see, it's hard to get in there, but you can see it and you can get into it. You just got to kind of force it through there. There it goes. And once you get your first stitch through there, it goes through nice. But like I said, I think it's kind of because I'm using the H size hook, a little bit bigger hook rather than a smaller one, so that my holes are bigger to see and easier to work with. So I'm going to put this down now, and I'm going to show you the both of them. So this one here now is made with a thread-like yarn, and this is through row 5, of course. Now this one was the bigger blue one. Look at the difference. Like, I don't know if you can, but the layering, the feel, this is so light and so lacy. You see how that just rolls, and you can imagine wearing this. It's just beautiful. This is nice too, but it just doesn't have the same flowy feel and lacy feel. So either way, whatever yarn you want to make with this, use on this pattern, I think it would work. But I'm really kind of loving the fingering yarns on this for these shawls. And when I get this done here, I'll get this all posted to the website, and you'll have the free pattern. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And thank you so much for watching. And please enjoy the day. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.